would like you to tell the public not only what you said on that one, but how the public can find out what you decide, where to get the documentation referred to as the redacted police department report and your findings. Don't take my time to do it. I think it's outrageous that you're meeting at 7:30 in the morning and that you met at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, both inside the LAPD headquarters, barely given notice. I'm signed up for your public information emails, and I got no such notice about either the cancellation or the change to these two special meetings. I think it's an example of the way that you ignore, disregard, and try to prevent the public from commenting on your proceedings. And I think that you need to move this proceeding outside of this building and in the evening when people who are working can come to your meetings and you can have a discussion with them, not just 2 minutes of listening or ignoring what they have to say. You've arranged for Greg Keeley, who's a major spokesperson for the Black Lives Matter movement that has brought the endless stream of police murders in this city to public attention and demanded action from you. You've prevented him from coming into this building. That means you need to get out of this building so you can hear from him. And that's on you at this point. If he's ordered to stay away from the police administration building, then you have the responsibility to get these meetings out of the police administration building where they shouldn't have been in the first place and go out into the community evenings and weekends so that the public can find out what you're doing and let you know what they think of it. Because I think most people I talk to think that you're doing a horrible job, you're derelict in your duty, and you're not dealing with your responsibilities as civilian oversight for this department. So that's my general public comment. And I'll reserve remarks about the police inspector general that you're hearing for the next section.
Taylor Fisher.
Hi,
Morning.
I'm Taylor. I'm from Palms, Los Angeles. I'm here in support of the other groups here. This committee is not happening at a time that is accessible to the general public. It should be in a location that more people are able to come to. There have been times where 500 people have shown up and they're not allowed to come into the room. Also, the way the room is set up, it's not a very community oriented meeting by any means. And this is not an accessible meeting, nor is the location very inviting to the general public by any means. So would really like to see that changed as soon as possible.
Thank you. As a reminder, there's nothing on the agenda today that's being discussed for public comment. The reason this is a special meeting is because we have a full day of doing business related to the Inspector General. So that is why this meeting is at 7:30 this morning. When we have a regular agenda where there are issues that this board is discussing for the public, those meetings will be held at our regular time at 9:30 on Tuesdays, unless there's some, I mean, there's never been a meeting where we've, other than the meetings that we hold in the community, otherwise it would be held at 9:30 a Tuesday at our regular time. Call the next speaker, please.
Yeah, Mr. Herman. And for the record, please let the record reflect Commissioner Sobroff is now present.
42 U.S.C. 1983, 42 U.S.C. 12101. Why was it that the Jews ordered the Romans to kill an innocent man? Well, like Steve Sobroff, the Jews decided to kill a man because of power and money.
Mr. President, the speaker's off topic.
This is general public comment.
with items within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners.
This relates to how police are ordered. This is how police are ordered to fuck with people in the community. They're told to do a specific task. They go out and they beat the fuck out of you, Steve Brown. Isn't that what happened yesterday in LA? Wasn't that what that hearing was about? Steve Brown versus the city of Los Angeles, LAPD, that beat the fuck out of an innocent man. Why the hell you beat people to death? For the same reason I gave my subjection of criticism, Mr. Sobroff. The Sanhedrin is no longer in power. I am God. And God says at Matthew 6:9-11, Our Father, your kingdom come, your will be done. Fuck you, Sobroff, the $1 billion developer who destroyed my community of Boyle Heights. The Jews were there at one time. The Jews decided to live by the beach, and fuck Wayne Spindler out of his so-called general relief time to escape.
Mr. President,
in
the speaker's
Ventura.
off topic.
This is
This is
general
not a matter
public
within the
comment.
jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners.
Listen, sir,
Your
Mr.
time is
T-Bank.
forfeited. Next speaker. Next speaker,
The
please.
next speaker, Tabitha Jones, followed by Laura Smith.
Welcome.
I'm here this morning to reiterate what we've mentioned before, just to express a deep concern that this meeting is being held at a time that is inaccessible to the community. It is the community's obligation to speak into the process later regarding the Inspector General selection process, and so any special meeting outside of that time is a community concern. So I want to reiterate our concern as members of Black Lives Matter, that this meeting is being held at a time that is inaccessible to the working people of the city whom you all represent. I want to reiterate that this process continues to be one that shows abject disregard and disdain and concern for our community, and we would like to see greater access. We'd like to see greater intentionality on your part as our representatives to come to the community and to move out of this building, because this building is not a place where we can all come and feel safe. And as you all know, there is no safety or security without justice, and we would like for this community here, this body of leaders to center justice in ways that will be life-giving for our community rather than disregarding and dehumanizing, which this process is. So I'd like to appeal to you again, and I know that you've heard this from our community many times, that we would like to see these meetings held at a time that
Please don't raise your
works
arms. It's
for all of
disrupting the
us.
meeting. If you do it again, I'm going to ask you to leave. Go ahead.
Do I get more time back? Because that wasn't
sure.
my fault.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
We really want to appeal to you to understand that working people cannot make these meetings. And so when you center community policing as an ideology and yet you do not come to the community at times that the community can be present, it signals to us a distrust, and it signals that you disregard our worth and our value. And so we need to appeal to you to shift your practice if you want to actually be representing us as you say that you all commit to.
Laura Smith, followed by Taylor Gates and Irina Martinez.
I would also like to echo the request for meetings at a more accessible time. As has been mentioned, meetings in the evening, meetings outside LA Police Headquarters, meetings where there is accessible parking. If the point of the meetings is actually to hear from the public, then the public needs to be able to attend the meetings. Working people need to be able to attend these meetings. Mr. Novick brought up a point asking where we can, get access to information. We were both at the meeting yesterday where this came up, and I would like to use my time to please hear where we can get that information.
Sure. The meeting yesterday, the item that was on the agenda, there was no decision yesterday. The item was continued till next Tuesday. It'll be on next Tuesday's agenda. As to any other issues of use of force where the commission renders a decision, the Inspector General's abridged summaries can be found at lapdonline.org, which is the department's website. If you'll go where it'll say About, you click down to the Board of Police Commissioners, and then you click on Use of Force, and there you will find all of the abridged summaries back to 2005 for cases that have been adjudicated by the Board of Police Commissioners.
How long after the decisions are those posted?
Generally, they are up within 7 to 10 days.
And the question regarding yesterday, it came up that the meeting yesterday needed to happen because of the statute of limitations. That suggests, given that officer-involved shooting happened on the 30th of last year, that there would be a 1-year statute, if I'm not mistaken. And so if that decision comes out 7 to 10 days after the decision, then that gives the public absolutely no time to make any kind of comment, which I think is very problematic.
Thank you.
Taylor Gates.
Morning.
Hello. I just want to be very clear that you are all bigots, and I am disgusted with your behavior, and you do not represent the public. And again, we reject your narrative of justice, and we, the people, will hold you accountable for your crimes. You know, I noticed on Twitter that Soboroff tweeted a criticism of Woody Allen in relation to sexual allegations, which I think is very interesting for a man who is daily defending rape and defending officers who have been committing, with evidence, with video evidence, have been continually committing rape with no charges. It's really interesting to me that you somehow have the cognitive dissonance to be able to alienate your own actions from your conscience. How do you sleep with yourself at night? How do you criticize Donald Trump on your Twitter and then come in here like this? How do you do that? Are you really that content sitting on your throne in your institution of power? Are you really that content? Do you not understand that we are talking about deaths in the community? And you sit there on your fucking Whole Foods check? Are you not aware of what we're talking about here? It's disgusting. And I don't even have the words to articulate. Each one of you, this will not be forgotten, and we will continue showing up.
Next speaker.
Irina Martinez.
The time is not accessible for us to have meetings here. We would like it outside of the LAPD headquarters. The times that you guys have in the morning, that leaves maybe 80% of the people that would like to attend, not being able to be part of this. I don't know what it is. What, unjust matters of, yeah, I don't even know what's going on. You know what's going on. But at this point, we need this meeting to be moved out of this headquarters and a time that people can attend the meeting and have accessible parking, just like she said. On top of that, you want to speak about this Me Too campaign on your Twitter with Donald Trump. Let's talk about the 14-year-old that was raped by your officer. Let's talk about all the allegations or the true facts of police raping inside of jails and individuals on the street. Let's talk about that. Can't talk about that, right? Talk about Waukesha Wilson. Can't talk about that either, right? We're going to keep talking about it. And eventually that 22 minutes of the video will be available. It will be available.
Okay, we have no other comment cards on item number 1. We're now on item number 2, closed session item, and we have 7 comment cards. The first 3 cards, Mr. Novick, Mr. Herman, and Tabitha Jones.
Put it back to 2 minutes. So I've been a member of the board of a local community-sponsored radio station. I've been a member of the national board of an educational public benefit nonprofit corporation. And when we did searches for the general manager of the station or for the executive director of the nonprofit, we conducted a series of public hearings, including a discussion of what the job description was, so the public could give us input on what kind of job they wanted the general manager or the executive director to do, what the responsibilities would be of the person we sought for that position. We had public hearings about the criteria we're using to evaluate the person for the position. I understand that you have a private personnel process, so you're not going to interview people in front of the public, but you have a responsibility to have a very clear and extended process of discussion with the public about what kind of person needs to be the Inspector General of the LAPD, the most murderous department in the country, year after year. You need to have a public discussion with the community at large about what the criteria are that you're going to use to evaluate the candidates for that position. And if you haven't done that, which I know you haven't, and you're not going to do it, which I know you're not, then the entire process is invalid. And it's a further dereliction of your duty as representatives of the public and civilians, so-called. I'm not a civilian. I'm a resident of this city. And I object to the whole idea that this is civilian oversight because it says that it's a paramilitary force and a civilian body. And I think that you need to rethink the entire nature of the police department and the entire nature of your role, and then think about how to apply that to the process that you're engaged in of hiring somebody to be the Inspector General. I referred last week to the fact that the Inspector General of the CIA was able to disclose to the public facts about the CIA's involvement with the crack cocaine epidemic and the distribution of drugs by the Contras under CIA supervision into this city. And the Inspector General of the LA Police Department has at least a bigger task because they're totally embedded in the national security state.
Mr. Herman?
So in the color of the law, it is the duty of the Inspector General, which has a vacant seat, as you see. Thank you for the picture, Mr. Johnson. However, the problem, as indicated, is the Inspector General qualified? Is the Inspector General going to uphold to the law? Is he going to uphold to the integrity of not Herman Jason Wesson, a.k.a. Herb, but will he uphold to 42 U.S.C. 1983 without restricting us from free speech, free assembly, and my salute to Mr. Johnson over there who took my picture? See, you have more interest in taking my picture than to understand
Topic?
that
Last warning.
the Inspector General, I'm not the puppet, sir. My name's Armando Herman, for the record. So the Inspector General's responsibility and role is to analyze this whole problem of programmatic denial. Denial that there is systematic racial profiling happen among Black Lives Matter, among Latinos, among Asians, among African Americans, and myself, a white nigger in a hood. So the whole issue here is to remind the public, to remind the world the insensitivity of the Inspector General when he doesn't uphold to the color of the law. And as long as we have good judges who can actually see through the color of the Inspector General and overrule in subjecting him to criticism based on 42 U.S.C. 1983 and our favorite role, Ralph M. Brown Act 54950.
Tabitha Jones, followed by Laura Smith.
We're grateful to have an opportunity to talk about this concern revolving the selection of an Inspector General. And it relates to the comments we've made before regarding the inaccessibility of this location, of this time, and this space for the community to comment on these important matters. As it relates directly to the oversight of this office, the Inspector General, we're demanding a transparent process that the community can speak into directly and routinely. And we also feel a great sense of distrust because we've seen time and time again through this inaccessible comment period disregard and disdain for our community. And so we would like to see independent oversight and a transparent process so that we can avoid the appearance that this is simply a body that rubber stamps practices that are dehumanizing to our communities. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Laura Smith, followed by Taylor Gates.
I would like to see more transparency in this process. I think that the public should be able to speak or to have information about this process, to be able to speak with more information regarding this selection. Police officers need to stop killing our LA residents. This is not inevitable. The people in this room have a power to make this happen. To not do so is to not exercise your will. And if you're not going to exercise your will, then you're unfit for the job. Appointing this person has an impact, and we want to be able to participate in that process. Regarding changing the time to be able to have a full day, as Mr. Johnson said, to go through this interview selection process, it is unclear to me if just in the last week a change we're seemingly able to, a change could be made to make that happen. It's unclear why there can't also be a special meeting to have a full day to review this backlog of officer-involved shootings from the last year. Why are we a year behind? If we can change something the week of to have a full day for this.
Mr. Teefank, will you take a moment?
Taylor
and
Gates.
Mr. Teefank, will you take a moment and review the process that we've gone through so far on the Inspector General?
Yes, sir. The Board of Police Commissioners is the appointing authority for the Inspector General's position. The Board of Police Commissioners met with the Office of the City Personnel Department, went over the job requirements for the position, went over the skill set necessary for the position. A job announcement was posted on the city website for over a month. Advertisements were made in a number of professional journals seeking individuals with the competencies necessary for the position. Those position applicants were reviewed, the applicants for the position were reviewed by a subcommittee of the commission. From that, there was culled down a smaller group, and today there will be interviews of the remaining applicants to determine if one or more of those candidates meet the qualifications desirous by the Board of Police Commissioners.
And were the postings public?
Yes, sir. They were posted on the
It's also
City
important.
Personnel website.
It's also important to note that our prior Inspector General, Mr. Bustamante, resigned about 3 months ago. So if any members of the public had anything to say about what the search process or what we should be looking for, we've had 3 months of meetings to for that to be addressed.
Okay, sir, go ahead.
I'd like to ask what are the qualifications or what are you looking for in an Inspector General?
This is your time to talk, not our time to talk. He
So
just
you can't
said that was
respond or
posted.
interact with the public?
No, this is called public comment, so make your comments. Go ahead.
I see, so you dictate the terms. Okay, well, I'm not going to hold my breath because I've I've observed the incompetency of this commission to even be able to schedule an accessible meeting. So I suppose it would be too much to ask to simply have the most basic of conversation to even have any 101 communication. So I apologize. That was far too much of me to ask. Now, I just want to say, in the future, I doubt that this appointment of Inspector General will happen in a way that is transparent or open to the community or even expresses any interest in hearing what our perspective is, because this is completely a farce. This is completely a theater. It's a total fiction. But we are here and we are taking this space and we will keep coming. This is ridiculous. How can you expect working people to attend these meetings? How difficult is it to ask for an accessible meeting? That's the bare minimum. Are you enjoying this? Don't understand.
Say his name, Ezel Ford.
The next speaker, please, Irina Martinez, followed by Adam Smith.
The police staff in front of the building refused to let me in because they said there was no meeting today. And so now I'm late because they refused to let me in.
If we verify that, then you can speak. We'll try and verify that.
I'm just going to say Brown Act. For the last, 2 years, maybe 4 years, you guys have violated, for those that weren't here, for Cynthia McLean Hill, that's now been in here since, September 15th of 2016. I'm just going to say the Brown Act. I feel that there's a civil suit that needs to be placed against you guys for violating the Brown Act continuously. You too, Matt Johnson.
Next speaker, please.
Adam Smith.
Just going to continue the conversation about transparency. For a civilian oversight board, having closed session items that directly affect the community just seems backwards. This whole process should be transparent, and I think that in order for that to happen, not only we can't have closed session items that we can't, see what's going on, but this meeting can't take place at LAPD headquarters. You can't change the time the day before or 2 days before. It's got to be at a time that working folks can come out. Like, I have the privilege of being able to come out here, and I do because so many can't. But I think as a civilian oversight board, beating a dead horse here, but there needs to be more transparency. I don't know if you all are promised a position in the Garcetti administration, but
You want to stay on topic?
we just need more transparency from this board, and actually deal with things that affect the community and not notebooks that might bruise the president's ego.
And we have no other cards other than
Mr. Brown, I'm going to let you speak,
from Michael Williams.
what you said was not verified by any of the officers. They just said you just got here. So nobody said there was no meeting, but I'm going to let you speak. So go ahead and speak. Be better to just tell the truth.
So I came to this meeting not upset, not mad, but actually wanted to talk about and have a conversation about real changes in this police commission. But again, because you have no freaking idea how to run a meeting and not violate people's rights, you have incompetence. You're saying I'm crazy and delusional. This is what this board continues to tell people, is that they're crazy
You're off
and
topic.
delusional.
This is your final
That
warning.
they're-
This is about the Inspector General.
Fuck you and
wanna speak?
your final warnings.
You're done. Thank you.
Cool. I'm great, because you guys are going to leave anyway. You guys
There are
keep
no other
doing
public
this.
comment cards.
They
The
told
Board
me
of
that I
Police
could not come
Commissioners
into
will
the
now
meeting
recess
because
into
of
closed
me.
session to
And then
discuss
you tell me,
item
oh,
number
I can
2A1 in accordance
You
with
should all
Government
have a
Code
right to speak. You shouldn't be
54957.
having this meeting at 7:30.